Let's take a deep breath in this morning. I lit a special candle this morning for each one of us, for each one of you, and for everyone that is going through something very challenging right now. So just know that that space is being held for you during this service today. That candle is lit for peace and for grounding energy. Taking a deep breath. If you are not struggling directly right now on some level, which it seems that most people are, on some level right now struggling. If you are not, then chances are you have someone in your life you are supporting, or someone in your life you are affected by that is struggling. Can we breathe into that together? Can we breathe into the heart of humanity and the love and the compassion that is truly needed right now, really, really needed right now? I think when we pause to do that, we have an impact and we make a difference. We have seen left and right in the news and in articles and in our own community, challenges with mental health issues, challenges with what's going on in our internal world and our external world. That's something to breathe into. And in unity, we know our practice is not that we stop by observing something, but we find out, what can I do to transform these things? What can I do for myself? What can I do for others, for my community, and for my world? I was on Messenger video, where you can do video calls with a friend last night. Actually, I was with her last night with my 2-year-old daughter, and we were just doing a video call, like a FaceTime call, like a Zoom call. And on Messenger, you can do something called faces. So my little one was playing around being a cat and having funky eyes and hearts all over her face, and doing all that kind of stuff, and playing around and having fun with it. And then we went on to other things. And so we're connecting and we're talking. And all of a sudden, my friend on the other side, when we're all back to faces now, real faces. And on the other side, we see a cat. And she turns into a cat. Her whole face, her whole being turns into a cat. And what she had said earlier in the phone call was, how is she doing that? I don't know how to do that. And apparently she found out how to do it. So she got herself there. And then she says this, she takes a pause and she goes, I don't know how I got into this, and I don't know how to get out of it. I don't know how I got into this, and I don't know how I'll get out of it. Now you've got to picture this moment, because this isn't my friend talking. This is an animated cat telling me, I don't know how I got into this, and I don't know how to get out of it. Actually, she wasn't a cat. My daughter was a cat. She was an owl. So I'm laughing, and I'm not even helping her get out of it, because I'm just laughing. But she wants to be done being the owl, and she can't, right? She is stuck. She is stuck in a space. She is stuck with a face on. She is stuck as an owl. And then she says this. She says, this 2-year-old knows how to do this, and this 66-year-old does not. How often, when we find ourselves in energies, in masks or in faces or in experiences that feel foreign to us, did we get ourselves into something and we don't know how to get ourselves out? And when she said a 2-year-old knows how to be with this and a 66-year-old does not, I thought to myself, truth. Because the 2-year-old has a beginner's mind. The 2-year-old cries when they need to cry. They scream when they need to scream. They throw something if they need to throw something. They run when they want to run. They laugh when they want to laugh. They are fully present and authentic in each moment. They are exploring. They're on to the next thing. They live life moment to moment. And that's a key for each one of us on the spiritual path, is to allow ourselves to dive in to the beginner's mind and take the wisdom straight from the mouth of the wise old owl, to remember, to allow part of ourselves to become like a 2-year-old, to find the adventure, to cry when you need to cry, to ask for help when you need to ask for help. If you think back to the beginning of this time last year, you may have said to yourself, is this really happening? And you may have taken a deep breath and you said, you know what? Spiritual strength. I can do this for 2 weeks. You remember that? You know what? I'm going to be big about this. I claim my divine energy now. I can do this for a month. I can do this for a month. Today marks the Sunday of 1 year. How would it have been if a year ago we knew that? Do you think you would have had the strength? I mean, I do remember taking a deep breath and thinking, okay, a couple weeks, okay, a month. We have navigated so much in this last year. We have navigated it within our own beings, within our minds, within our emotions, within our community, within our families, within our world. We have navigated so much. You have done that month over again 12 times and made it through. If you're standing here today, you are making it through. You are making it through. You might hate it. It might be ugly. But this is you making it through. And friends, this is life. This is life, because life happens. We never know what is coming in the future. We never know all the curves and the turns of life, and we don't get to control it all, do we? I mean, raise your hand. How many would like to be the leader of everything and make all the decisions? And how many could sit here today and may want to say, I would do a lot differently and my way is better. I would do things a lot differently and my way would be better. But hindsight's 20/20, isn't it? We don't always have the information, do we? We don't always have the information, and that can cause a lot of stress when we don't always have all of the information we need in life, but that's life, isn't it? If you are here, you are making it through. It may be that the bumper stickers are not cutting it for you anymore. It may be that you don't want to hear any more about being positive or putting your mind into a great space. It may be that you're throwing that out the window for the time being and it's just not working for you. It may be that your dinners are popcorn and M&Ms and your lunch is a box of macaroni and cheese. Licking the bottom. But you're making it through. You may be increasingly frustrated by the external conditions. And for some, you may be seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and starting to feel the spring emerging, and you might be feeling better than you felt in a year. All of those things, be okay with them. All of it. Be okay with it. Be okay with how you're coping, because it is what is. And each one of us has the power to be with what is. And when we activate our own power to be with what is, we enter a stream of non-resistance, and an opening happens because we are in the flow of life. When we shut down, we cause restriction. When we cause restriction, we limit our imagination, we limit our creativity, we limit our flow, we limit our peace. A key is not to push against how we are coping or how others are coping. I'm going to coin a new term here, cope shaming. Don't do any cope shaming. Stop cope shaming yourself. Stop cope shaming anyone else. Stop cope shaming another country or your own. Think about that. Even our country is showing up how it is. Do we have the power to be with what is? Our world is showing up with what is. We do have the power to be with what is. We don't need to add a layer on top of what's already happening. A layer of difficulty on top of the parts that are really not optional. Some are coping better than others. That's for sure. Some are just hitting the hardest part right now. And again, some are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and they're starting to feel a shift. Remember that this is grueling for some. Remember that this is grueling for some. You know, that idea that everyone's having their own battle, that everyone's in their own struggle. This last few weeks and last couple of months, I have been present to and honored to be present to more gut-wrenching stories than in a long time. And not stories like these are stories in the news. I mean, person to person sharing this is happening in their lives. You know, people have layers on top of what most people are dealing with, right? I mean, for so many, the biggest struggle is having limitations placed upon them or placing limitations upon themselves. But for some, they're going through some of the most difficult times in their lives, and they're going through it in a time of difficulty, in a time of intense struggle. So the ones who received cancer diagnoses in the middle of this, the ones who are moving through divorce or separation or relationship issues, the ones that are moving through mental health issues or mental health issues for those they love. There are suicides, there are homicides, there's domestic abuse. These are not outside of your life. These are not outside of your spiritual family. These are not outside of your neighborhood. These are the people you look at, whether or not they're silently suffering or whether or not they're reaching out. Moving in and through hospice care. Retiring in the midst of a pandemic, going from one phase of life into another one in the middle of this, and dealing with the extra challenge of that. And you have stories in your own life and of those you love that might bring you to your knees. So in this time, can we recognize that there is so much intensity for families right now, for individuals, for communities? And we are called into radical compassion. And we are also called, I believe, not to create a secondary difficulty on top of a challenge. When we add our own layer to the pain that we have, or the pain that others have, we make something that is hard enough harder. Can we breathe into that? We make something that's hard enough harder. Now, none of us, I believe really none of us, not one of us, if we were awake to that, if we were realizing that, would participate consciously in it. But when people are in pain, they cause pain most frequently. Relationships can deteriorate when people need each other the most, when people are most vulnerable to feeling abandonment. And people tend to retreat into their own beings because they're just trying to find their breath. They're just trying to navigate moment to moment. And some reach out and some don't. But secondary difficulties arise when we add layers to the pain of ourselves or of others. We know the old Buddhist saying, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Let's stop with that for a moment. Just really think about that. Allow those words to be like a meditation in your being. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. What are we doing to contribute to our own suffering? Are we doing anything to contribute to the suffering of others or the world around us? What can I do to contribute to alleviating the suffering of others? What can I do to contribute to alleviating the suffering of the world, of those around me, of those in my community, of those in my family? What can I do to alleviate the suffering in my own life? What am I doing that's kind of tipping the scales between pain and hardship and difficulty and suffering? Well, let's look at what the conditions of suffering are. Now, not the causes, but the conditions where we see the possibility for suffering to expand, the opportunity for that seed to be planted and grow. Stress ramps up with the 3 C's: choice, control, change. Choice, control, change. We may like to think that we all love having choices, we all love control, and we all love change. But even when these things happen, even when you have change that's good, you've heard the stories about someone that starts a new job, gets married, moves to a new place, thinking all these things are so great. But they may be great, and it can also cause a lot of stress and create opportunities for difficulty. So think about that in the context of your life today. Compassionately think about that as you inventory your life of today. We are faced with the idea of choices, big choices, and also not having choices, right? Who feels like they have not had the darn choices they want to have? Yeah. Who's kind of mad about that? Yeah. It is what it is. Do we have the power to be with what is? When we're looking at our choices, and when we either don't have enough choices or we have too many choices, both can send us into a spiral. And what about when we don't feel like we have enough information to make the choices? What about the stress that just comes from trying to get enough information, get clear, get truth, get facts, can get tuned into our own heart and our own wisdom so that we can make the choices that are best for us, that are best for our families, that are best for our world. Making big choices, having our choices taken away. That is a condition that can be ripe for the emergence of suffering. Control and lack of control. Lack of control, feeling controlled, having the burden of too much control. Having the burden of too much control. Changes. So often we think we like changes, but the human condition is one that when there are changes, there is stress often, and we struggle. How have you been immersed in changes? Think about the number of changes you normally have in your life. And then slide back to a brief inventory of, say, your last year. The changes you've navigated. The control you haven't had or you've had too much of. The choices you felt were limited or too much of a burden to bear. Knowing that we've all navigated these times, can we create a softness around ourselves and around humanity? A gentleness? Can we step into blessing each other? Can we step into a practice of sending loving kindness, both within and to others? Can we find or create our own path of non-resistance? That's a big question. Can we find or create our own path of non-resistance? Now, don't think that non-resistance is the same as feeling defeated. Don't confuse it with giving up or taking things lying down. Non-resistance is about your power to be with what is and to create a peaceful path, moment by moment, grounded in principle. How to be with what is in a peaceful way without adding extra suffering to already difficult situations. So often, instead of moving into a path of non-resistance, when we're looking at choice, control, and change, we end up really chanting resistance, resistance, resistance. And that tends to complicate things. It tends to make things more difficult. So let's remember, in each moment, we can ask ourselves, with whatever is going on in our lives, our community, our minds, our hearts, our world, our conversations, we can remind ourselves, am I adding to or alleviating suffering? In this moment, is this thought adding to or alleviating suffering? Is this conversation, is this action, is this moment adding to or alleviating suffering? Is it helpful or is it not helpful? Is it optional or is it required? We can remember that we are not alone. That though things seem so personal and like we are the only ones It is also universal. Just about everything that we go through is also universal. And in that, when we move into that idea from a sacred place, from a spiritual place, it doesn't take away the personal in a way that diminishes it. It actually is the pathway or the portal into a deeper comfort and comforting, into expanded strength and spiritual power, and into an experience of communing with that part of the human or the spiritual condition, where we realize that we are not alone. That we are not alone. That as much as something that we're going through can feel personal and like it's only us and we're isolated in it and we're alone in it or we're stuck in it, that in fact, there is a field in the energy of non-resistance, of others, of humanity, of creation, of divinity, where there is understanding and there is a carrying and a lifting and a holding that is available for each one of us, a cradling, a space where we recognize we are not alone, where we are not abandoned. Remember that for the most part, we all do the best we can with what we know or what we have at the time. We all do the best we can with what we know or what we have at the time. That doesn't mean that the best is always good enough. The human self can go back so often and say, it wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough. But for the most part, most of us do the best we can with the consciousness available to us in each moment. Can we just be raw about that, open about that, authentic about that, that sometimes that feels like that's enough and sometimes it feels like that's not good enough, but it is what is. And can we engage that on the path of non-resistance? Can we draw forth our power to be with what is? Sophocles said, I have no desire to suffer twice, in reality and then in retrospect. I have no desire to suffer twice, in reality and then in retrospect. So let us remember, don't engage in the torture of hindsight. Don't engage in the torture of hindsight. We can only know what we know in a moment. We can only do what we did in a moment. And then we can do differently in the future. And we can trust that in each moment, if we did what we did and we showed up how we showed up, and we're showing up how we're showing up, we're doing the best with the consciousness available to us in this moment. When we can really breathe into that and not fight it and not judge it and not shame it, then there's a new day available. There's a new moment available. It's not holding on. It's not linked. It's not tied. We're not stuck. We may experience another moment of difficulty in the next moment, but there's movement. There's motion. Can we remember that when we're in the midst of pain, and even when we're creating suffering or experiencing suffering, can we breathe into this affirmation when we're having the challenge of being with what is? Can we affirm God is in the midst? I am divinely guided. I am equipped for this. rather than kind of shouting at the universe saying, well, I don't want to be equipped for this. I actually don't want this at all. That's heard. That's valid. God is in the midst of this. I am divinely guided. I am equipped for this. Remember, we all have moments where we think we can't take another moment. What we're really doing with our minds in that moment is saying, I can't be with this into the future. And then we project. I can't be with this for another year, for another 6 months, for another 3 months, for another whatever. And when suffering is acute, it's, I can't be with this for another hour. I can't be with this for another minute. And sometimes, friends, you have to break it down to the second. I know some people right now that are practicing the second. They're practicing being with this second and catching their breath in this second. And that's more than enough. Let us not torture ourselves with trying to be equipped for every moment that comes forward in the past, or torturing ourselves with the hindsight, creating suffering in the now. We are each walking our way through, one day at a time, moment to moment, in this present moment. You know, a pearl is made when an irritant gets into the shell, when an irritant works its way into a clam or an oyster. And as a defense mechanism, a fluid is created to coat the irritant. And little by little, it secretes this coating and it builds up and it creates a pearl. A pearl is formed when that clam can be with what is. My dear minister friend, Reverend Kevin Ross, reminded me this week that heat and pressure make diamonds and coal. We are born with the power to be with what is. We have this strength. Being fully present in the moment, surrendering to the path of non-resistance, and trusting that something is forming, unfolding, and emerging within us and among us. I was talking with a friend this week about a bunch of almost awfuls that somehow within the last couple of months she avoided by what seemed like chance. And she said to me, remember your little angels, they never get a rest. Remember your little angels, they never rest. They're always right here, guiding, directing, nourishing. Can we breathe that in? There is so much love available. There is so much in the invisible that is here for each one of us, supporting us when we take a breath into the present moment. My dearest Unity minister, Sig Paulson, said, we live, move, and have our being in an ocean of love. We are completely surrounded, embedded in, and permeated by fields of love. The fields are potent, active, and vibrant. So in times where we feel like we're walking the line between pain and suffering, or when we're deep in the suffering, or being present to someone who is, can we take deep breaths and be present in this moment, adding to the alleviation, not to the complication? Wayne Mueller reminds us about the power of simplicity. So for anyone who's had too much, anyone who's too tired, anyone who's too XYZ, you fill in the blank, try simplicity. If you've thrown everything else out the window, try simplicity. He says, making a cup of tea can become a seed of great healing. Making a cup of tea can become a seed of great healing. He says, when we spend a few moments attending to something as uncomplicated as the rising and falling of our breath, our attention becomes more focused, we become relaxed, and our minds feel clearer. Every act we perform with mindfulness and care may plant a seed of awakening. The Buddhists say that even chopping wood and carrying water can lead us to healing and enlightenment if we bring them our full and loving attention. So certainly, if chopping wood and carrying water can do that, certainly this year can. Namaste.